Hello, everyone. Thank you for checking out this special episode of Really Dicey. This is Manny, and I'm here with Babs. I'm here with Max, and I'm here with Matt. Today, I want to talk about consent in horror role-playing games. Although technically, this could be about consent period in tabletop or any gaming in general. Um, the reason why I wanted to talk about this topic was because I received a comment from one of our videos where someone said, now, this is about one of our reviews. We talked about that there were safety tools in this role-playing game that was coming out. A safety tool in role-playing games is a I don't know if device is the right word, but it's an item in the game to help game masters let players know the level of horror or level of um, situations there are in the game, so that they're not encountering anything that might be offensive to them in any way, or even so if someone doesn't want to deal with infanticide, that's something that you game masters should talk about. And the safety tools are there to help game masters talk to their players about what the game entitles exactly. If you have a fear of clowns, that's something that game masters and players should definitely talk about if they're playing in a like a horror carnival. Um, I'll just go ahead and say what this person said. Um, the safety tool would be the first thing I would throw to the trash. This is a horror game, not a safe place for snowflakes. So I did comment back. Not every game master has the skill set to communicate to their players of what level of horror they are going to be seeing in their games. Horror has a huge umbrella, and things like war, loss, and monsters fall right under it. If game masters are playing with people they never played with before, it would be wise for them to have the tools they need to explain what the game is about and what levels of horror it contains. Also, can we please retire the word snowflakes? Unless in the context of winter, it makes one sound unoriginal, insecure, and lacks a proper vocabulary. Now, and again, that's me being a little snarky. And the person did respond back with a bunch of curses, which I deleted. It didn't add anything to the conversation. But I did keep the original comment and my response up there. I've been blessed to have a bunch of players that I played with forever. So the idea of Safe 2 is something that I'm very unfamiliar with because I've never really played with new players, not till recently. So my group, we've been playing for like almost 20 years. So I know them. I know them well enough to know like what not to include in my game. So I was used to that. And the idea of Safe 2's kind of referred to me like there probably are game masters out there that may not have the communication tools to talk to players before they start a game. Session zero could be a little messy, if you don't know um, the right things to say, how to start things, and so forth. I feel the safety tools are very important. I mean, not every game master has great communication skills. I know I'm not perfect myself, um, but before I take over this topic, I'll just pass the baton around. Um, I'll start with Babs. Babs, what are your thoughts about this?
So, in beginning of all my games, I hand out the safety tool checklist and I let people reply to me anonymously or through my side Gmail account saying, let me know what your triggers are so I know not to approach it. And this was actually came up very useful lately because I'm running Lost Mine and Phandelver. I was going to do Into the Yawning Portal, which involves when characters die, they don't come back. And those who have been brought back to life, they are slowly withering away. And because we were transferring into that new campaign setting, I reset the consent list, and one of my friends said, "Hey, someone in my family has cancer," not knowing that this was the campaign we were going into. So stuff like people getting sick and dying, that's something that's triggering to me. Like, okay, we're not going into the yawning portal anymore. So I switched it to something else, Storm King's Thunder. But that's something that like immediately came into usage, and I have it in the beginning of all of my games. That way I don't accidentally say or do something that's going to make somebody mad at me, especially since I'm presently a paid DM. So I don't want people to pay me to just upset them.
Hmm. Do you find that the handouts are a big help? Because you play with pretty much all the time with new players.
Yeah. What I do is when a group sends me all of their There's stuff I have like a master checklist, and I check everything off. That way, I have like a solid one to look at. So it's not like saying like, oh, Amy doesn't like this and Josh doesn't like this. It's all anonymous. It's just a checklist of things for me to permanently keep out of that game.
Oh, okay, okay. And
And
you,
like as things go on, like that list always changes.
so when you get the information back, do you find that it helps your game out? Do you find that it helps you create the right tools you need for your game?
Oh, it really helps because if someone says, I absolutely hate spiders and I have to write out Nesnar the Black Spider from Lost Mine of Phandelver, I could easily replace that with a Beholder or some other cave dwelling monster. And I can lean more into different types of horror because if you're leaning on the shock value of making you a great DM and it's the negative type of shock value, then you're not a good DM. I like leaning into things that are unexpected, and I go for the, I guess, emotional devastation rather than outright scaring people.
Okay. Um, Max, what are your thoughts?
Well, so I mostly play with my friends. So it's my game group of people that I've known for quite some time. I used to do paid DMing in person back when that was a thing you could do, and I kept those ones pretty light. Just because you don't know exactly what people are going to be. But I want to touch on something you said. It had been, I mean, within the last few years that I'd even heard of these safety tools. And the first one I ever heard of was the X card, which is just a very simple, like straightforward, like physically you could have, an index card with an X on it. And if something happens, the player would just hold it up. And that's just full stop. Whatever's happening right then is no bueno. And you can't, you just gotta put a stop to it. Currently, I'm running a horror themed campaign. Babs is actually one of my players. She's an absolute chaos goblin. I love it. Well, gnome. She's a gnome, but she's so chaotic. It's delightful.
I'm an artificer. I gotta be.
Oh yeah. She delights in blowing things up. But the horror that I run is more like gory horror than like psychological, or I'm actually kind of a weenie when it comes to certain things. Like I think what happened? Your character was there was some pit fighting involved, and the fact that even for a brief moment I implied that there was animal violence, I was like, no, there isn't. It's these are not pets. This is not a dog fight, because that's just me as a person. Like I could blood and guts, and like there could be demonic monsters who are going to swallow your soul, but no violence towards animals.
Do you also have like a set of safety tools? Have you used them? Do you find them effective?
I don't use formalized safety tools all the time, but I do always, if I'm doing a campaign, it's session 0 and you talk about expectations and you talk about what's going to happen. Like before I started this, well, it was going to be a one shot, but as these things happen, it sort of grew in the telling. But like right from the get-go, I was like, there's going to be undead, there's going to be monsters, like expect certain things. So my group, we talk about it before we start. We talk about it between sessions. I always like to touch base because at one point, one of my players wanted to switch characters. So for narrative reasons, we were going to kill off his old character. But actually, strangely enough, the dice being what they were, the character survived. But the near-death experience caused the character to give up the life of an adventurer.
Okay.
But it's all about just talking with your players and figuring out what people are comfortable with.
Okay. Matt, what are your thoughts?
Well, first, I agree with everything that's been said so far. I would just like to point out a couple things. One thing, this sort of consent applies to the GMs well. You shouldn't let the players back you into role-playing anything you're uncomfortable with. A character tries to seduce someone and then they want to role play out the scenario and you want to draw a screen across it because you don't want to. You don't want to be that NPC. You have the same rights as the players do.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
I'm uncomfortable with sex scenes. If the characters want to get together with an NPC, usually it's very brief and we do it very fast. If it gets, there's been one situation where this is maybe 20 years ago, but I had one player um, wanted to get with wanted to seduce an elf NPC at a parade or party, and we were role playing it, and it happened, and then he wanted to go to an alley and get very descriptive about things, and I was like, oh, hold on, I am not comfortable with that whatsoever. That's a I that no I had to stop the game and explain, hey, listen, I know you.
Yeah.
I try to remember the exact conversation. It was very awkward, but
Yeah.
I just put my foot down. Like,
Sounds
all
it.
right, that's just I didn't kick the player out or anything like that. The player understood, and we just fast forward that, and that never came up again. Um, so yeah, I agree that game masters should feel safe when they're playing a game, and once in a while you will come across players that may be a little difficult, and it is something unfortunately we have to deal with. Um, Anyone have any other comments or thoughts?
Well, yeah,
So
I just
actually,
had one more thing I wanted to say. Some people might be listening to this about consent and particularly with horror games, and they might be thinking, oh, well, geez, that seems kind of like a buzzkill. I mean, particularly in horror games, like the point of horror is to be uncomfortable, right? To some extent. But I think what we've got to remember is that RPGs are more intense than a movie or a book because you're not just the audience, you're involved in it. So it can be a lot more personal. And I just wanted to point out that consent has a flip side. You know, it's not just about safety; it's about permission. It can be pretty hardcore. So if you get the right group of people and they all agree, if you get a table of consenting adults that all agree, everything is fair game. I mean, if you want to play Marquis de Sade, the role playing game, go right ahead. Don't invite me, but by all means.
Yeah, same.
So I mean, this doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be a buzzkill. I mean, it isn't. It's about communication. But if you find the right group of people, then consent away.
Babs, you look like you wanted to say something.
yeah, I was gonna tell a different story, but going back to the consent list, like, it's not only just marking out what you can't have in your game, but it gives you more ideas of what you can have in the game,
Right.
which is like, I love body horror. I'll do body horror all day long. And Matt had a fascinating monster in his where I was just like squeeing the entire time.
Oh, which
But-
one?
Squish.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, that was nasty.
But yeah, if my group is like, we don't like starvation, we don't like torture, but on the list it says, is body horror okay? And no one marks no. It's like, okay,
There you go.
okay,
Yeah.
I can have a campaign that is horrifying, and no one marked no on this.
Bring on the
And-
centipede.
Absolutely. Oh, I would go the fly on it.
Ooh.
Just teeth falling out. Real gross stuff. Yep.
There's actually a creature I want to introduce, and if you haven't seen Dungeons or listened to Dungeons and Daddies, I'm not going to spoil it.
Okay.
But there is a specific creature that is introduced as normal at first, but when they get on the bad side of this creature, I'm like, oh, I need this so much. And Anthony Birch is an amazing DM, and his characters are horrifying. I love them. Yeah, I'm just waiting for a chance to slip in some body horror things, and I love stuff that messes with your mind. So I'm going to be introducing the I think it's called the False Hydra, where when you encounter it, it erases your memory. It's basically the silence from Doctor Who, but it's a mini Hydra.
Okay.
So it's basically eating people in town, but no one remembers that person exists. So, I mean, that's a thing, a horror thing that would be very interesting in a game that, you know, probably no one's going to check off on a consent list. So that's something I could dip into. I will press that, you know, as the one female person here, it is, and someone mentioned it before, it's okay for the DM, GM, storyteller, referee, whatever you want to call yourself, to have your own things that cannot be done in a game. Like in all of my games, there is absolutely no romance between player characters and the DM. So bards can't seduce, and there's no romance between player characters unless they both come to me outside the game to okay it. Because I had a situation very, very first time I was running a game. It was just like an online thing. Someone mistook my character's mild flirtation as an excuse to stalk me in real life for 6 years. So that is what born the no romance.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah.
And in other games, I think the furthest romance has gone is when my character had drinks with another character, and then that was it.
Yeah. Well,
I had one situation where the two players were talking amongst themselves, and they plan like a role-playing session. Like their one character will be mad at the other and have these like deep debates, and I was unaware of that. So when they were role-playing that, it was so convincing that I thought, wait, are they fighting? So I stopped the game. I said, hold on a second. Is everything okay here? Do we need to stop the game and talk it out or anything like that? I was like, oh, no. They, it's okay. We were playing this and everything. So, oh, okay, that's fine. Just as a FYI, just let me know. Just so that, and I know there's no, that way there's no tension, because I wasn't sure if the other players were thinking the same thing. I am like, oh man, what's going on? So communication is important, definitely.
yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I'll conclude this in saying that the game master or referee's role, dungeon master's role, is that you want to make your players happy. So it's try to take the time, get to know them, and see what they're okay with, what their boundaries are. And if you're in a you're at a convention and you're playing a horror game for the first time, and you're not too sure what you're not sure what to be offended by, either use safety tools or if you have the time, talk it out. Very important you do so. There was a story that came out from Britain years ago where a game master had these like abusive scenes, and the players just walked out, and the game master got banned. So game masters, very important that if you're playing with new players, to talk it out. And I'm very happy that games like use example Hecna that's coming out, has safety tools, so that if you're playing something, you have something available and it's ready, you have your players are protected as well as you're protected as well.
Just if you get Hecna, I know the playtest has it. It has safety resources for when you're doing gaming at a convention, where you have like rolling people coming in all day. Long-term safety tools, the X cards, and Roll20 stuff. And if you're like me and you paid for your Zoom account, you can enable like the hand raise action or different voting tools. So if something comes up in game and someone's upset but doesn't really want to say it, they can, flag you quietly instead of having to type the entire thing out in private chat. And you can stop, reconfigure yourself, and move on, which is great.
All right, excellent.
Cool.
So thank you everyone for watching. If you're going to comment on this video, be selective with your words. I will not tolerate any stupidity. So take care, be safe, have a good night.